Hi, good morning. Happy New Year, all. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. A few of our board members present here. Monique, Sam, Brian, Nancy. So that's enough of a quorum for us to go ahead and get started. Let's open with the approval of the private activity meeting. We can have a motion for approval, please. Hi, James.
Hello.
So moved.
Second, this is LaDawn.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, LaDawn. All those in favor signify by aye or hand raise.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Next up is an approval of the December 2023 meeting votes. If you recall, we had both of those items in our last December meeting. So if I could please ask for a motion of approval for the 2023 meeting votes, December 2023 meeting votes.
I so move. Nancy.
Second.
Thank you, Nancy and Sam. All those in favor signify by an aye or a hand raise.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thanks again. Next is the director comments and the budget updates.
Hi, Anthea.
Hey,
Happy
Allison.
New Year, everyone. Exciting 2024. Much good things to come in the coming year. So this is a big week for the state in that the legislature starts tomorrow. So the opening day is tomorrow, and then the state of the state from the governor is on Thursday. So important things to be watching as the state works to address the needs of Coloradans around the state, which obviously includes housing as well. As we rounded out 2023, I'm happy to report that we successfully worked through the backlog of contracts. We do have 2 contracts that are waiting to close this month, but those were the contracts were in hand with the applicants prior to the end of the year, actually well before the end of the year. But one is waiting for a Board of Trustee vote, and one is working on their W-9 to ensure that it is accurate. And so with those 2 things, the loans will be closed, which is over $100 million worth of contracts closed in the last 6 months. And that's just the backlog. By the way, that's not the ongoing work that we do. In addition, there was the goal of processing contracts within 120 days, which is half the time that we were hitting during COVID. As you probably remember, we had a 500% increase in funding, which did have a big impact on us, and so created quite the backlog. So I mentioned the backlog progress. What I can tell you is that we were well below the 120 days for our regular contracts that we're working on. So we're at 101 days. So much improvements happening, very exciting things. And we will continue that work as we look to continue meeting those directives set by the governor. So I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
I have a comment, Allison. I just have to commend you all for the timing shift. It's been pretty significant. I'd say most noticeable probably over the past 6 to 9 months, but no longer are you the bottleneck on most of the deals, at least from my perspective. So yeah, kudos to you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthea. I appreciate that. I have to say the team has done tremendous work, but they have been working for more than the 6 months. They've been working for really a year and a half to drill down on the challenges that we were having. And a lot of that had to do with making sure that our contracting staff had the support and number of people in order to actually process the needed contracts in a timely way. So many of those improvements have been put into place. And so we're starting to just starting to see the benefits of those improvements because there are several things that we're still putting into place and implementation. And so I would expect to see many more improvements over the next 6 months, but then even more so in the next year as well.
That's great.
So keep an eye out. Keep giving us feedback. We appreciate it.
Great. Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Paredes for the State Housing Board bylaws and proposed changes.
Thanks, Anthea, and good afternoon, everybody. We have sent you all, the State Housing Board, some proposed changes to the State Housing Board, the document that used to be called Rules of Agency Organization. And this is, primarily cleanup language. We ran this document and these rules by our representative at the Attorney General's office, and we are suggesting some changes for you all to consider and perhaps adopt. The first is that we refer to this document and these things not as rules, but as bylaws. The type of organization that the State Housing Board is one that can govern itself in terms of your orders of business by enacting bylaws. The type of organization you are does not need to enact rules. And if rules are enacted, there are a lot of other steps in terms of public notice and formalities of hearings, like you all experience when we have manufactured housing rule changes. So it's absolutely semantics here, but we propose to change this document to refer to these as bylaws because that is the type of organization the State Housing Board needs and the only type of thing it needs to have in place. In addition to that, you'll see some red line changes and clarifications to the definition of a quorum and what is needed to pass a vote, like on an application. So in the past, when we had an uneven number of State Housing Board members, we always defined a quorum as 4 or a majority. Over the last year or two, since we've now had 8 State Housing Board members, sometimes we've run into a bind when we only had 4 members present, and that was a gray area. Is that or is that not a quorum? So we're proposing to amend the bylaws to affirmatively indicate that 4 members is indeed a quorum. That's how we have been operating. This will formalize that. And then we're also proposing that you decouple the act of having a quorum, 4 members present, with the amount of members or votes it takes to pass an application, simply a majority of the votes cast. This will alleviate that, that oddity when we have 4 members present, but one needs to recuse him or herself, so we only have a vote of 3-0. If we adopt these new bylaws, this will allow both things to be okay. We can have 4 members, great, we have a quorum, we can open the meeting and conduct business. If we have 5 deals to consider, 1 member needs to recuse herself for one of those 5, and that vote is 3-0 in favor, that still will enable that deal to pass. So those are the proposals as were sent to you. These are not DOH mandated changes. This is your board. You are the members. We've consulted with our Attorney General and provide these as recommendations for y'all to consider, discuss, and adopt if you see fit. Happy to take any questions from you or throw it back to you, Anthea, for discussion.
Thanks, Andrew. So Andrew and I talked through this yesterday, and I feel like those changes are in line with, our experience this past year when we've needed a quorum and our necessary changes. Are there any questions or comments from the other board members, or should we take it for a vote? Ladon?
Oh, I just want to say that they make complete sense to me, and I think that we should take it to a vote.
Thanks, Ladon. Any motions for approval?
I make a motion to approve them.
This is Monique. I second that.
Great. Thank you, Ladon and Monique. All those in favor signified by aye or a hand raise.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you all. It looks like we have a question from Paul Marshall. I'm not sure who Paul Marshall is. I don't know if we have a time where, Andrew, do we have a time here for this board meeting where we take comments from the public?
We can certainly do that and would love to and be happy to do that. That is up to you, Anthea, as to the order of business. In the past, we have gone through the Housing Board's business and then open it up for any public comment or questions.
Okay.
But I think you all can decide in what order you'd like to do that.
Okay, let's do that. Let's stick to the agenda for now, and then we'll open it up for any public comments if there are any. So thanks for that, Andrew. Let's go now to the project application review stage. I'd like to turn it over to Shirley Diaz to present on the Benedict.
Good afternoon, everyone. And presenting for the Benedict today is Darcy McClure and Justin Raditz.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year, happy Tuesday. I see a lot of familiar faces on here, but for those of you I haven't met, my name is Justin Raditz, Vice President of Development for what used to be called Archdiocesan Housing. We realized it was a mouthful, so we rebranded to Catholic Charities Housing. And really excited about this project, the Benedict. So for anybody who's not familiar, we've been in the Valley, in the Roaring Fork Valley for some time now. We currently own and operate 3 properties, about 180 units in the Valley, including one in particular in Glenwood Springs. And they're within 50 and 60% AMI projects, all post 15 year. And this project came about in particular because, frankly, one of our board members lives in the lot across the street. Noticed this lot in particular, and we had been looking for a project in the Valley to do for probably 15 years, as Catherine Groscup at Chaffa could attest to. And once we saw that this lot was already zoned, it was flat, decent soils, up in the Valley, that's kind of a unicorn. So we bought the lot without really having a fully baked project yet, and everything just fleshed out really well. So the project that you see in front of you is the project at hand right now. And I think it's important to note in particular with the name the Benedict. So my second oldest, his name is Benedict, so he thinks I named it after him. But actually the name comes from a huge contributor to the project financially. His name is Fritz Benedict. He and his wife Fabi were longtime residents of the Aspen area. And he was in the 10th Mountain Division. If you've ever done a hut trip up in Aspen, the Benedict trails, that's named after him. And among a number of things, he was developer of Red Mountain. He was also an architect and understudy of Frank Lloyd Wright. And obviously passed away with a lot of wealth. And when he passed, he bequeathed us a sum of money that had to be used for the provision of affordable housing in the Roaring Fork Valley. So those funds, and I'll touch on that for a moment, but those funds are a big reason, if not the primary reason, that this deal was able to pencil at the end of the day. Because as you know, the cost of construction and everything up in the Valley is a premium even to Denver. So we really needed some solid gap funding to bring this one together. I wanted to note in particular, the city has been very, very supportive of this project from the very beginning. They granted us the largest parking waiver that's allowable by the director. I think we set the high water mark for that, which makes a lot of sense for a senior project. And in addition to that, they also made some concessions in their normal building plan and site plan review process, which usually has to happen subsequent to one another. And they allowed us to run it concurrent to shave down our timeline and be able to accommodate CHFA's timeline in particular. So they've just been very supportive so far. Great group of folks up there. I did want to note in particular that Catholic Charities Housing is putting about $8.5 million of our own money into this project. Portion of that comes from the Benedict bequest that I mentioned. It's about half, and the other half comes directly from our balance sheet. That's going to help fund really the debt on the construction side. So a great project overall. You'll see there's a little bit of Frank Lloyd Wright flair in the design so that we could honor Fritz Benedict's background as an understudy of Frank Lloyd Wright. And frankly, this is just going to be an amazing project. So current timeline, probably breaking ground May of this year. And then it'll probably be about 14 to 15 months of construction. It's a tight site. And then ready to lease up and get folks housed thereafter. So of course, we're happy to answer any questions that you have, but appreciate your time.
Thank you, Justin. Great looking project. Any questions from the board? Sam?
Thank you, Anthea. Justin, how are you?
Very well. How are you, Sam?
Doing great. Just a quick question. I was a little bit surprised by the income targeting mix of the project given Catholic Charities' mission. I'm wondering if you could speak to the reasoning for that. Was it based on the economics of the project, or was it based more on the unmet market needs?
Yeah, great question, Sam. So it's actually the latter. We originally penciled this project as a 30 to 60 project. And from looking at the demand at our existing projects in the Valley, which are 50 and 60% predominantly, as well as our market study information, as well as talking with the development director, who was a giant participant in a recent Roaring Fork Regional Housing Study, we concluded that the demand, just because of the economics and the profile of the Valley, the demand for housing was really more in that 30 to 40 to 70 to 80% band. That middle was kind of lean. So, you know, the mission of Catholic Charities is really to serve anybody that needs that needs assistance, no matter what level they're at. And yeah, all that data just really supported that we needed to break out of our typical 60% and under profile and serve the community the way that it needed to.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, hearing no other questions, I'd like to request, since this is our one deal of the day, that we go ahead and take this for a vote. So if I could have a motion for approval, please, for the Benedict.
I would like to move for approval.
Thanks, LaDawn.
Second.
Thanks, Sam. All those in favor signify by aye or a hand raise.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Anyone needing to recuse? All right. Excellent. Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Okay, we have our agenda goes until, I believe, 1:30 today, so we do have some time for comments. Paul Marshall, I saw that you put a comment in the chat. If you would like some time right now, I'd like to give you a few minutes to present on what you were chatting about.
Thank you. Yes, hi. How are you guys? Since 1995, I went through a very tragic thing here in Colorado through fair housing. And I believe through a joint venture between the state, city, and federal authorities, fair housing has not been monitored or implemented in the state because of your partnerships through the Downtown Denver Partnership, through Brothers Redevelopment, through Holland and Hart, through the Hopper program, through the the emergency rental assistance program, somebody just took $15,000 under my identity. I was in Texas. In 1995, let's go back. I came to Robert C. Gwynn, Fair Housing Director. At that time was John Eubanks, Guadalupe Herrera. Debbie Ortega was involved under Del Norte. You had Northeast Denver Housing Center. You had Ross Management. You had Catholic Charities, all involved in an exploitation under the real estate here. The funding that comes from the special trustee, Mr. Gerald Gidner and Mr. Thomas Reynolds out of the Department of Interior Indian Affairs. He told me that he funded these programs that I investigated in 1995 and found that there was a lot of folks who didn't recuse themselves when they had a financial interest in all of this development here. So under the Downtown Denver Partnership and all of these different service providers, these second chance centers, the HIV service providers through CAP, through It Takes a Village, you have nothing but a complete fraud of the funding here, stolen by people who are public officials. Debbie Ortega, Marvin Kelly, a lobbyist, Holland and Hart. What we found, not only did the Black Caucus steal $1 billion of funding for African-American women with children with AIDS, but we also found that Brian Dino, who was a part of the Downtown Denver Partnership, was aiding and abetting and exploiting these persons. What I've learned from Mr. Gidner, the special trustee there at the Department of Interior and Indian Affairs, that he not only funds these programs, but even though that Maximus Inc. and many others who are involved in this entire scheme in the city and county of Denver and the state of Colorado, this has been ongoing. My cousin, Mayor Webb, who's a trustee of the Chickasaw Nation, who's very intricately involved in the housing here under his companies. Northeast Denver Housing Center, Continental Divide, which is Debbie Ortega, our city council person, who called me in 1995 explaining to me that she had a financial interest in these properties that I have found were stealing the funding from the special trustee, Mr. Gidner. But this all connects back to the lands that are connected to my mother and my family, the Giddens, who owned the Republic of Texas in 1836. We still have that undivided interest. And what we've learned is the 55,000 shares of common stock under the real estate here in the city and county of Denver in the state of Colorado is intricately being exploited. My cousin, who used to be the Colorado Real Estate Division Director or whatever, Charles O'Neill, I'm finding out that you guys have a problem in the Division of Housing that under local affairs, all the way back from 1995 under 98 CV 633, you've had officers of the court. You've had federal mandates that have been violated by officers of the court. You've had these officers of the court who are oftentimes evicting these people when these people should have been protected under the HOPWA mandates by the U.S. Attorney General's office or the state Attorney General's office. But the problem is you have an illegal joint venture going on under the Division of Housing. So my name is Paul Wayne Marshall. Robert C. Gwynn, Guadalupe Herrera, Debbie Ortega, Marvin Kelly, all of them, Holland and Hart.
Paul, I'm going to stop you for a second and just let you know it's been 5 minutes, and I just want to give you another 30 seconds or so. If you could wrap up and give a specific ask for the State Housing Board for us to address, please.
Yes, I believe that you all need to address fair housing and making sure that your partnership doesn't include the policing of these discriminative practices that are ongoing under the Division of Housing for the state of Colorado. So that is what you need to look at, and I'll take care of the rest in the federal courts.
Paul, thank you for coming today and voicing your
I
concerns.
appreciate
here.
you. And your name?
My name is Anthea Martin. I'm chair of the board. I'm going to turn it over to Allison to address, but before I do, I just want to say that as a state housing board, we do, and as the Division of Housing as well, I'm sure Allison will address this, but we do take diversity and inclusiveness very important. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Allison, if you want to address it.
And there's one thing else, Ms. Martin. You may want to look at 99 CV 1518, and you want to look at 98, that's in the state court, and you want to look at 98 CV 633. So Paul Albert Markson Jr. found all of them guilty of Cranston and Gonzalez. You had all of the partners in that case in 99 CV 1518.
Okay, I've noted those.
Yes, please
yeah,
review those, because I
appreciate
think
that.
it's going to help you guys to basically provide fair housing in this state. Once you look at that case, you're going to understand that an unlawful illegal joint venture and a violation of the federal mandates of the Hopper program was conducted by both federal, state, and local officials here in the state of Colorado. Not private citizens, but the actual government entities who were supposed to be protecting us. I'm coming. So are a lot of others. We have to address this because you guys can't. You probably wouldn't even hear. But we are back here to address this.
No, I'm glad
Miss
you're addressing
Allison,
it
I
at
appreciate
the
you
federal
guys.
level and with the court system, because that's exactly where I think this needs to be addressed. Allison, do you want to respond?
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
And thank you, Paul, for providing your comments and bringing this to our attention and to the State Housing Board's attention. My name's
Thank you.
Allison George. I am the Director for the Division of Housing. I
Yeah.
wanted to ensure that you know that the Civil Rights Division with the Department of Regulatory Affairs is actually the entity that investigates civil rights claims and fair housing claims. And so I would encourage you to take a look at their website and to submit a claim regarding your concerns.
Well, the fight, I hate to interrupt you, Allison. Under the Teapot complaint system that's ran over there at Fair Housing. So you got to remember, they've integrated through your partnership. You had the Civil Rights Division along with the Fair Housing Division, Mr. John Eubanks, Shirley Bethia, Lorraine Apodaca, all those crooks. All of them were supposed to protect us. So we filed the complaints under the Teapot complaint system. The problem is, again, that your people under this illegal joint venture that occurred before you had the United States Consolidated Plan, which I still believe is unconstitutional, you had these people get these complaints. Bruce Johnson, who was a double amputee that died down there at the Denver hotel, a Standish hotel. So you had all these complaints. The problem is, again, that under the United States Justice Department, the United States Attorney General's office, the city and county of Denver's protection, whatever they're supposed to do, somebody was supposed to protect us. And yet we filed the complaints with the Division of Civil Rights, Ms. Snow, I believe her name was Ms. Snow. All of these folks were involved. Valvita Howell from over at all of these places, Fair Housing. So the complaints have already been made. The obstruction of justice by these people who are clothed under the color of law is what prevented those complaints to ever being addressed. So we have taken those measures, Miss Allison, to file the complaints. The problem is that there's been an abuse of authority and power in this state. And it has a lot to do with the Dawes role in the allotted lands and mineral rights that me, a descendant of these native indigenous people, have been put up under this gentrification, unfair housing by the United States Congress. And that's who we've got to address. But y'all, as a people, we the people must address this issue in this government system that has purposely, perpetually violated, discriminated against us. under the American Constitution. So this is vast. This ain't just dealing with your housing. This deals with the allotted lands and mineral rights that we have connected to the dots under the real estate of the United States of America. That's a problem that we will address with them. But as I said, since y'all want to play the board, just like I just found out, taking under the health board, they took congenital birth records.
Paul, I'm
Children
gonna
born,
stop
wait a
you again.
minute, wait a minute.
I have
You
to
guys-
respect everyone's time here. But
Yes.
absolutely want to respect your voice as well. And one of
Right.
the members wants to add a
But
comment.
again,
So I want
you're trying to
give you a
point
better
us to
space to
an
comment
area. You're trying to point me to an area where I'm trying to tell you public corruption has invaded the division of, like I just told Annie and the rest of the over at Care Center, whoever used my identity and got that money, because I got the paper trail now. I'm going into a federal court because this is a pattern of
Paul,
practice
I'm going to
under
ask
the
that you
division
respect
of.
the time here and the voices.
All right.
If you
Well, you
want
guys
to
have a
move
wonderful
on as
day, and
well.
I will handle this in a court of law. Thank you.
Okay. Sam, did you put your hand down? Okay. Well,
Yes, thank you.
thank you all for being a part of this important discussion. Hopefully that was handled as best we could. Appreciate everyone joining this meeting today. And I guess we'll wrap up the board meeting. We'll reconvene in a couple of weeks.
Ryan has his hand up.
Yeah, excuse me,
Ryan?
Anthony. I know this is time sensitive here, but just for the benefit of the rest of the board members, Sam, what was your question going to be?
It really wasn't a question as much a statement that while I appreciated Mr. Marshall's comments, I don't think that this was the venue for handling his disputes. And I wanted to make a motion to adjourn.
Got it. No, thanks. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that. Any other last minute comments or questions? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy New Year,
Take care,
everyone.
Happy New Year, all.
All right.